Welcome to the session 15 of Operating System and Linux. I'm Manibhushan D'Souza, and in this class we are going to look at multiple process scheduling. This is a continuation of process scheduling. So let's look at a few of the things that are regarding the multiple process scheduling. So in the previous classes we have seen different types of scheduling. So let's continue with the next type of scheduling, and that is multi-level queue scheduling. So the word itself says that there will be multiple levels of queues which are available, and the process can be given to any one of them. So if you look at this particular diagram over here, you will notice that you have different types of processes are there. So like you may have system processes, you have interactive processes, you may have interactive editing processes. So the difference between interactive and interactive process and interactive editing, one simple example is you are issuing some commands to the operating system that becomes interactive processing. You are using Microsoft Word for editing something that is also interactive, but it is not as quick as the issuing the command. Next one is the batch processing and maybe the student processes. Now, if we maintain the queues for all the different types of processes, then what we have is the multiple level queue scheduling. So, multiple level queue scheduling algorithm partitions the ready queues into several separate queues. Depending upon the type of processes, the processes are classified. For example, you may have foreground processes which are interactive with the user. We may have background processes which do not interact, but they perform one type of processing. Depending upon the different levels, the processes may be given different priority. For example, the foreground process may be given higher priority and the background processor may be given the lower priority. Okay. Once we prioritize the processes are permanently assigned to one queue, and it is not possible for us to change the process. So we decide what type of process it is. For example, if we decide that this is a foreground process, we assign that foreground process to a particular queue. So there will be multiple number of queues, and if I decide that this is a system process, I'm going to place that in the particular queue over here, and this process now cannot shift to the other queue. So that is the meaning of saying it is permanently placed or assigned to one of the processes. Generally, how do we decide that a process is interactive, non-interactive, or system or anything? There must be a criteria how to decide the type of processes. Now it is based on many properties like how much memory it is using, what is the priority of the process, what type of process it is. Based on that, we can say we can categorize the processes into different categories. Okay. Now we have different types of queues over here. Now let's assume that we have many processes in the batch processing. So this is one queue, and we may also have some processes in the interactive and some processes in the interactive batch editing and maybe student process and so on and so forth. Now if you select one of the queue, that is the queue that is associated with the batch processing. Now how does the scheduling take place? So that is very important. Now every schedule that you every process that you see over here, every process or every ready queue has its own scheduling algorithm. So the scheduling algorithm that is used over here may be first come first serve. The scheduling process that is used over here may be round robin scheduling, and so on and so forth. So depending upon the type of queue, every queue has its own scheduling. So each queue has its own scheduling algorithm. So and that can be used. For example, if you have a foreground scheduling, that's what I told you, interactive scheduling, we have round robin scheduling, or if it's a background, you may have FCFS scheduling. Okay. The next question that arises is, we have lot of queues over here. Now, which one will be selected first? So there are, this is one queue, this is the other queue. There are some processes waiting here. There are some processes waiting here, maybe in this also. So many processes will be there. Now we have to choose among the queues also. So within the queue, you may have first come first serve, or round robin scheduling, and so on. So this is within the queue, inside one queue. Now the question is, when will you select this queue and when to select the other queue? So we have to decide between whether to select the system process or interactive processes. So one among them. Now inside interactive editing process, there will be some process waiting. So for them, you may have a scheduling algorithm. Now the next question that comes to us is how to schedule the queues itself. So there is a system process queue, there is a interactive process queue, there is a batch processing queue, and so on. How do you select among these three queues? Again, there will be algorithms. So scheduling among the queue, generally every queue is given a fixed priority. For example, a foreground may have a higher priority, background may have a lower priority. Now once that every process is given a particular quanta of time, once that quanta is finished, it is preempted and some other process from the other queue will be executed. Now let's consider a scheduling algorithm. If you look at here, there are 5 different types of queues are there. One is for the system process, other one is for interactive and interactive editing. Then we have batch processing and student processes. Now each queue has a absolute priority over the other. So what is the meaning of it is, suppose if you want to execute the batch processing, now this is in the level 4, now let's assume that it's in the level 4, then there must not be any process in the level 1, level 2 and level 3. So if there are no processes in the level 1, level 2, level 3, then batch processing will be allowed. Okay, hope you get that thing. Suppose if there is any process here, then this is first executed, then batch processing will begin. So this is the idea. So because they have an absolute priority, if there is no process here, now let's assume that if there is no process in the system processes, then interactive process will be executed. If suppose interactive process are not there, then interactive editing processes will be taken up. If there is no interactive editing process, batch process will be taken up. If there is no batch processing, student process will be taken up. So this, it will come in that order. So if there is any item or any process in the top level queues, then it cannot execute. Now let's suppose you are executing a batch level processes, and suppose a process comes at the system processing or maybe interactive processing. In that case, what will happen? If the batch processing was executing, and if you get process on the system process or maybe interactive or maybe any other that is at the top level, then this is preempted and the process at the system level will execute. So when the top level processes comes, the lower level will be preempted and the processing will begin with the top level processes. Okay, so this is what I've already told you. No process in the batch queue can continue if the top level, that is system, interactive editing are all empty. Okay, and again if you have interactive process editing, and then if some other processes are coming on top of it, then that interactive processing will be halted. So this kind of processing is generally used in the Solaris operating system, which was one of the operating system that was started by Sun Microsystem. So the other way in which we can have the queues getting scheduled, this is one of the way. So every queue is given, so every queue over here is given a priority. So this has the highest priority. So anything within this queue is first executed. If nothing is there, the below one will be taken up. Anything within this queue is executed. If nothing is there, this will be taken up, and so on and so forth. Suppose if we are executing batch process and something else comes here, batch processing is preempted and then given. This is one way of doing the scheduling in between the queues. Other way of doing the scheduling is dividing the time among the queues. So each queue will get a portion of the CPU, and once its time is over, the queue is preempted and the other one is given a chance. For example, foreground processes, which are usually interactive processor, we may get to something like 80% of the CPU time may be allotted for them, and then the 15% time may be, the 20% time may be given to the background processes, which are maybe using the batch processing, which I use generally first come first serve processing. What are the problem with this kind of scheduling? Now we know very well that I've already told you when I started, multiple levels of queues are there, but a queue is permanently, a process is permanently assigned to a queue. So that's the bad part. What if the process goes from the background to the foreground? So a process was running in the background and suddenly it shifts to the foreground. Then nothing can be done. It was there in the background, it is permanently assigned. So it can't shift. So that's the bad part about it. Okay. So process cannot move from one process to the other type. And if the process is taking too much of time, it may then lose the CPU altogether. Okay, so we cannot move from one process to the other. Okay, because it is not possible to move from one queue to the other, this slightly becomes a disadvantage, and it's also inflexible. You are given a queue and you are supposed to use that same queue, you cannot shift to the other. Okay, so that is going to be a problematic thing. However, the overhead is very less here, because you, when the process comes, you decide what type of process it is, permanently assigned to a queue, and that's the end of it. We don't do anything after that. Okay. Now how to overcome this? Now to overcome this, we have a slightly modified version of this, and that is the multi-level feedback queue scheduling. So in the previous case we have multi-level, let's go multi-level queue scheduling. Now here we have multi-level feedback queue scheduling. In this scheduling, it allows the process to move from one queue to the other queue. So that's the idea. Depending upon the characteristics, we decide whether a process has to move to the top queue or the bottom queue. So if the process is taking too much of CPU time, then it may be moved down, because it is holding on to CPU for a very long time. It can be pulled down. It's in other words, its priority can be reduced down. It can be taken to the previous queue, and then it can be, or the queue which is a lower level queue, and it can be scheduled over there. So what's the advantage of this? So if the process takes too much of CPU time, you are bringing it down to the lower level queues. So what is the advantage over here is this input output or interactive processes get the higher priority. Okay, similarly, if the process is waiting too long, okay, in the lower priority queue, it can be moved to the higher priority. Now this prevents the aging, and I have already told you, aging leads to the starvation. So what happens is a low priority process is kept there in the lower queues because the top level, the higher priority queues items or processes are coming every now and then, low priority items or processes are not touched at all. So what happens is they wait, and finally they die, because either the system shuts down, or the person who gave that process may leave the system and go out, saying that I'm not getting the result for a very long time, forget it. Okay, so in that case, nothing, you will not get the process will not get executed at all. So this is called as aging till starvation. So this is one of the problem I have already discussed in the previous videos. Now let's look at the uh, multiple level feedback queue scheduling. So let's assume that you have three different processes, queues are there. The first one is the round robin with the quantum of 8. The second one is again round robin with the quantum of 16. The third one is first come first serve. Okay. So let's assume that this is at the level 0. The quantum 8 is at the level 0. This will be level 1 and this is level 2. So we have different types of queues are there. So what happens? When the process enters, okay, it enters at the queue 0. Okay. If the no items are there in the, whenever a CPU wants to execute a process, it always takes the items from the queue 0. So it is as simple as the previous case. If there are some items in the first queue, that is a queue 0, CPU will take this. If there are no items, it will take the Q60, the Q2, that is the quantum 16. If there are no items are here, it will take the last queue, that is the queue number 2. So this is queue number 0. So 0, 1, 2. So if there is no item in the Q0, Q1 is taken. If there are no item in the Q1, Q2 will be taken. Okay. So this is how the scheduling will do work. So what happens when the process arrives for the Q1? Okay, if the, suppose you have the Q1 here, if there is any item in the Q1 and if the processor is executing Q2, the Q2 will be exited out, or it is preempted. So what happens is you have the queues at the top level queue, and suppose say you are executing from the Q2, this is Q1 here. So if a process from the Q2 is being executed, and if suppose if a new process comes at Q1, then this will be preempted and this will continue. So this is simple as that, because Q1 has a higher priority. Okay, at the same in the same way, suppose if you have one more level which is at the top level here, which is at the level 0. Suppose one more process comes at level 0, then this is preempted and the process at the level 0 will continue. So higher priority always stops the lower priority and it gets executed. Okay. Now we must decide on the scheduling. Now how to decide on whether to take one process to the top or whether to bring it down, or how do I put one in the one process and remove it and put it in the other process. There must be some way to decide on that. For that we have a number of parameters. Okay. So a multiple feedback queue, that is a scheduler, multiple feedback queue scheduler, is defined with the certain parameters. So the parameter first one is how many queues are there in it. So in the previous case I said that there are three levels of queues are there with the quantum 8, quantum 16 and F7. You may have many other levels of queues. So how many levels of queues are there? Okay. Within the queue, what is the scheduling algorithm that is used? for a given queue, what is the scheduling algorithm is used. Which method will determine to take a queue from the lower level and put it in the higher level. So what is the technique that you use to take one process from the lower level and put it to the other? The next one is, what is the method that you use to demote a process from higher level to the lower level? So that is also there. So the next one is how much let's go to the next one. Okay, method used to determine or to demote a process to the lower level. So next one is the method that is used to determine which queue a process will enter. So when a process comes here, so let's say there are three levels of queues are there, and a process arrives here. How do you decide that it has to go to this queue, or it has to go to this queue, or it has to go to some other queue? How do you decide that? That is also one of the parameter that we use. What are the disadvantage of this particular thing? Now it requires some way of selecting the values for this parameter. So there, I told you there are different parameters are there. How do you decide on those parameters? It's easy to say, but it is going to be a difficult task to write the program. So in general, this kind of scheduling is more complicated than having just multiple levels of queue and permanently assigning the process to these queues. Okay, now let's look at one other type of scheduling. So in all the previous scheduling, we assume that you may have number of queues. So this is what you have assumed, but in all the cases we assumed that there is only one CPU. So all the queues are given to one CPU. Now let's assume some other option. So what is the other option? Other option is, what if you have more than one CPU? So what if you have more than one CPU? So this can go to here, this can go here, and so on. So is it possible? So that is what is the idea of a multiple processor scheduling. So in multiple process scheduling, there will be multiple CPUs will be available. Okay, so it is possible to load the process among the various types of processors. However, this kind of processing really is going to be too complicated because there are more than one processor which are available. Okay, now two things can happen here. All the processors may be of the same type, so that is a good thing, or all the processors may be different type. So just to give you an example, you may have Intel 7 i7 processor, you may have Celeron processor, you may have a RISC-based processor, ARM processor. So they ARM and Intel, they have a different altogether they are different. One is CISC processor, other one is RISC processor. Instruction set in one microprocessor is different from the other microprocessor. So you may have that situation, but suppose if all the processors are identical, so all the CPUs are same. When I say same, it is not Intel same model. So let's say all of them have Intel i3 processor. Just assume, just to give you an example. Okay, so all of them, you have a number of processor are there. All are i3 processor. Everywhere you have i3 processor, identical processor. Okay, they have the same functionality. So what happens is anything can be given to any of them. Okay, so that's a great idea. Suppose if you have many processors, so this is Intel i3, this is Intel i3, this is Intel i3, just to give you an example. So you can give it to a given process, can be given to this one or this one or this one. It doesn't make any difference because at the end it is same processor which are processing. Now the next one is the memory is also uniformly distributed. So this kind of scheduling is called as a uniform memory access. So there will be all the memory can be uniformly accessed. Now the question comes what is this memory access? Now if you study about memory accessing itself, if the memory is located in different places, then the access will be different. Okay, now suppose if you have memory access is same, processor also same, then what you call that as? You call that as homogeneous processors. So a homogeneous processor, everything is identical. So anything can be given to any other. It's a good idea. Okay, so if you have all the processors same uniform memory access, you take a process comes, you take the process, just give it to one of them, any CPU which is free, just give and take tell the CPU, okay, go ahead with the processing. However, the things are not so easy. Okay, why it is not so easy? There are some complications that are involved. Sometimes some devices are directly connected to one processors. Suppose if you have a special device that is connected to only one process, it is not connected to the other processors. Microprocessor, I know when I say. So you have a CPU here, for which you have the queue here, let's say, and you have the processor, and there is one other device, something input output or anything which is directly connected to one of the CPU. So one of the CPU has that special device. Now if your program is the others are there, other CPUs are there, but if your process is making use of this particular device, so anything, let me call it as D, if it is making use of that device D, then it has to be given to the single process only. It cannot be given to a process that does not have an access to that particular device, input output device. So the scheduler has to now decide. So there is a process waiting in the ready queue, even though all the, suppose if you have 10 CPUs are there, it cannot be given to any one of them, because even though all the 10 processes are identical, but the one of the CPUs connected to one special device, and it cannot be given to others. Suppose if it is making use of this device D, and if it is given to some other processor, the processor will fail altogether and say, I can't do it because I have no access to that particular device. So the scheduler has to decide on that. Okay. Now there are other problems which may encounter when you have this homogeneous processor. One of them is if every processor has their own separate queue, in that case one other problem will come. Okay. What is the other problem? Now, if every processor has their own queue, then some of them may be very idle. Some of them may be very busy. Suppose if you have a processor here, let's assume that you have a processor here. Let's assume that you have two processors. Let me draw two processors, one processor here and the other processor here. Now this one has its own queue, this one also has its own queue. Now all the processor in this one, maybe CPU bound processor. You know what is CPU bound processor? It makes use of the CPU very heavily. In that case, what happens is this is very busy executing bit. Whereas if this all of them are input output, this is free, because once it goes for input output, the CPU has to wait idle. So some of them may be very busy, and the other one is very idle. Okay. Now, how do I prevent that? Now, to prevent this, what is been generally done is, even though you have processors, so let's say, let me draw it again. Even though we have a processor, we may have many number of processors. So this is one CPU, this is one CPU. A common queue is given. So what happens is, from the common queue, the process is given. So if this process is free, if this particular microprocessor is free, this process is given to it. Now if this processor is free, it can be given somewhere. So whichever it is free from the common pool, it's like a common queue, you take the processor and give it. So that way you can prevent the CPU from sitting idle. However, this also has some problem. We'll look at them slightly later. Now, two types of scheduling approaches are being performed over here. One is called as a symmetric processing. The other one is called as asymmetric processing. What is the meaning of saying symmetric processing? Now, in the symmetric, everything is considered to be the boss. Every CPU that you have. So let's assume that you have many CPUs in the system. Everybody is boss. So everybody does their work on their own. So there is no secretary, no clerk, no nothing. Everybody is boss. So each process knows how to schedule itself. So here each process is self-scheduling. That is why it is called as symmetry. There is asymmetry. Everybody is same. Okay. So what happens is these processes. Okay. Look at the ready queue. If something is free, it takes up and goes. It looks at it. If something is free, it takes up and starts scheduling. If this is free, it takes up and schedules. So it is a good thing. All the processor will check. Okay, if anything is there in the ready queue, and if I am free, I will start executing it. So you may think that okay, that's a good thing, but it also has some problem. Now, what is the problem? So problem comes again. Let's assume that you have two processes, and there is this common queue, and in this common queue, two processes are there. One process is given to this, other process is given to this. Nothing, no problem at all. However, the problem comes when both of them share some data. If both of them share some data, then that problem will happen. Okay. One of them may be updating, other may come and change the value. It can happen. Okay, so one process has done some update, other may come and make all the changes here, because the data structure is shared among them. So you make some changes, you set the value as 5, the other process will come and set the value as 10. You again go back and say, no, this is 5, I will set it back. The other process comes and say, no, that is 10, I will change it to 10. So when multiple processes try to update the common data, then this can prevent this can create a problem. That's why we need to prevent that from happening. So two processes, the precaution must be taken that two processes do not do the updation on the shared data. The other one is, suppose say this process will look at and say, okay, there is let me draw it again. Okay, so let's start with the common thing. So we had two processes. So the same idea, we have two processes, and we had one common queue. Only one process is there. So this process says, okay, this is free, I will take it. Well, this also says, same time, this simultaneously it also says, oh, this is free, I will also do it. So what happens? Same process, two of them simultaneously at the same instance saw that one process is there waiting. Both of them took it, and both of them are parallelly executing it. Okay. So what happens is the values, the result may not be expected result. So in this case, that can happen. Okay. How to prevent this one? So there must be some control. So without control, it is not possible. So if you allow everybody to be boss, there is nothing is going to happen, because they will end up in fighting with each other, doing one taking the same process, one updating the common memory and so on, a lot of problem. The solution for this is asymmetric processing. So what is asymmetric processing is, in this, one of them is considered as a boss. So in this, what happens is, in this particular case, you have the common queue here. One of them is considered to be boss, and all the others are considered to be slave. So again, I am not saying that even though I have drawn it very large, it doesn't mean that one of them is strong, one of them is more powerful. No, all of them are same, because I'm talking about a homogeneous, all of them. Just to give you an analogy that he or this particular process is boss, I have drawn like that. So it takes it, this boss takes it and assigns it to one of them. Okay, it says, okay, you go and do this work. So it's like a supervisor in the construction site. You might have seen the supervisor who says, okay, you go and do this, you go and do that, and so on and so forth. So there is one master which will control all the activities which are performed on the scheduling. So that's, and there are slaves which performs the task. So that's why it is also called as master slave processing. So master will decide and the processor will, the slaves will do that thing. So master processor can be programmed to take all the scheduling and controlling of input output device and all the other activities within the system. Slave processor are only given the user code, and you tell the slave that, okay, you do it, you do that, you do this, and so on. So the processing will continue. What's the advantage over here? It is a very simple scheduling, because the processor master has to only decide. The schedulers are not doing anything. So master, if master decides that, okay, this data is being shared by two processors, and the master will say that, okay, only one part you do it, the second part let it be there, and so on and so forth. So you can come out from the problem that is associated with the shared data, that can be solved. Okay. However, it is not efficient. Okay. The reason is there may be input output bound processor which may block one of the CPU. So the master may give it to one of the processor, and there may be many input output operation. In that case, the CPU may simply sit idle and say that, you gave me the work, but that work is doing input output. What I can do, I will wait until the input comes, and so on. So the efficiency may go down. Now I have told you one type of I have scheduling, or one type of systems wherein all the processes are same. All of them are i3, i3, i3. All the CPUs are i3 or i5 or Celeron or whatever it is. The same processors. But you may have the other scenario wherein you may have different types of processors. Okay, so one is i3, the other one is i5, the other one is i7. So different types of processors. Just to give you an example, I again don't go in depth into saying, oh, there will be i3 in this part of the computer, there will be i7 in the other part. Just to give you an analogy, so there will be different types of processors will be there. The processor have different capabilities associated with them. So anything and everything can't be given to any processor. Suppose if you have a process in the ready queue that makes, just to give you an analogy, that makes an exclusive call to some instruction which is available only in the i7 processor. Okay, you maybe you know what is Intel i7 or anything. In that case, it has to be given to only that process. If there are 10 i3 processors waiting without anything, nothing can be done, because it is making use, that code is executing only on i7 processor. So the program that is compiled for a specific processor has to be given there, otherwise it will not run. So this is the problem of a heterogeneous system. So with this we will end the scheduling part. So we have seen different types of scheduling. If you really want to know more about it, please refer to the Galvin's book on operating system. Thank you for your interest.